The air over Guadalcanal is not air. It is a wet woolen blanket, heavy with the smell of mold, diesel exhaust, and the sulphurous rot of the jungle. It is October 1942. On the perimeter of Henderson Field, the world is reduced to a 30-yard circle of reddish-brown mud, sandbagged gun pits, and the oppressive vibrating dark. This is the normal world for the men of the 1st Marine Division. Life is measured in daylight hours, spent cleaning the complex mechanisms of their 90mm M1 anti-aircraft guns, and the agonizing, hunted nights spent waiting. The heat does not break at sunset. It simply becomes a thick, suffocating humidity that clings to the skin, rusting weapons and fraying nerves. Insects, thick as smoke, provide a constant maddening soundtrack, a high-pitched whine that burrows into the brain. In a .50 caliber machine gun pit near the Lunga River, Gunnery Sergeant Mike Sullivan scrapes mud from the feed pole of his M2 Browning. He is a man made of hard angles, his face mapped by sun and exhaustion. His routine is immutable: inspect the guns, check the ammo belts, berate the young Marines in his charge for any speck of grime, and then wait. The waiting is the worst part. The calm is a deception, a held breath. Every shadow seems to surge and recoil in the perimeter lights. Sullivan squints into the blackness beyond the wire. His eyes ache. He's been rubbing them for weeks, trying to force them to pierce the night. Something is wrong with the darkness, or perhaps with the way they are trying to fight it. The sound begins as a tremor in the teeth, a subtle disharmony in the insect's drone. Then it separates, becoming a distinct, desynchronized thrumming from the north. Washing Machine Charlie. A private whispers the name given to the single harassing Japanese float planes that come to torment them, but this feels different, heavier. The field telephone buzzes, a voice, thin and metallic, condition red, bogies inbound multiple, bearing 090. This is not a nuisance raid. This is the Tokyo Express, an all-out effort. The air raid siren gulps, then screams. Men scramble from their foxholes, their boots sucking at the mud. Sullivan settles behind his M2, his thumb pressing the butterfly trigger plate, testing the tension. The 90mm guns, directed by the primitive radar of the SCR-268, are the first to speak. Their metallic whump, whump, whump shakes the ground, and high in the sky blossoms of black flak appear, useless and distant. Then the targets are close enough for the machine guns. Sullivan picks up the lead plane, a Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber, a dark cross against the slightly less dark sky. "Target acquired!" he yells. "Engage!" The perimeter explodes in a wall of noise. Sullivan's gun hammers, the muzzle flash, a blinding white strobe. He sees the red-tipped M25 tracers leap from his gun, a beautiful, terrible stream of light, reaching for the bomber. He walks the stream of fire onto the target's path, just as he was trained. The red line looks perfect, and it achieves nothing. The tracers sail harmlessly behind the bomber. A perfect line aimed at where the plane was, not where it is. He watches, his jaw tight, as his tracers and a dozen others do the same, hosing the sky, a chaotic light show that serves only to pinpoint their own positions. The bombs whistle down, walking across the fighter strip, and the ground erupts. Sullivan sees it clearly, his gunners. Their faces, lit by their own tracers, are flinching, their eyes locked on the bright red light. They aren't shooting at the plane, they're shooting at the light. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" he roars, but it's too late. The drones fade, the bombers are gone. All that remains is the smell of cordite and the sound of men crying out in the dark. What he didn't know was that this night of total, infuriating failure would change the war. The problem is not bravery. The problem is doctrine, physics, and human biology. A declassified U.S. Marine Corps report from the period lays out the grim mathematics. Analysis of nocturnal anti-aircraft engagements, 1st Marine Division, Guadalcanal, Sept. 1942, ammunition expended, 50 caliber, 78 Zozern rounds. Enemy aircraft confirmed destroyed by 50 caliber fire, 0. The primary tool for night gunnery is the M25 tracer round. This 6.25 grain projectile is designed with a small pyrotechnic charge in its base, intended to ignite on firing and burn brightly for over 1,500 yards, showing the gunner the path of his bullets. In daylight, it is a brilliant tactical tool. At night, it is a catastrophic failure. The core of the issue is biological. The human eye requires up to 30 minutes to fully adapt to low-light conditions, achieving what is known as dark adaptation. This sensitive state relies on the rod cells in the retina. The M25 tracer, burning at thousands of candela, is so intensely bright that the instant it leaves the barrel, it floods the gunner's vision. His pupils contract instantly. His night vision is shattered. The dark silhouette of the Japanese bomber, which he strained so hard to see, vanishes, replaced by the retinal burn of the tracer's path. The gunner is now effectively blind to his target. His only remaining reference point is the very stream of light he himself has created. He naturally begins to aim the light, not the plane. And the light's trajectory inherently deceives him, causing him to walk his fire consistently behind the moving target. The War Office and the Bureau of Ordnance, operating in the well-lit world of test ranges, are baffled. Their equipment is sound. Their doctrine is proven. The failure their memos imply must lie with the men. This failure translates into a unique, grinding hell for the defenders of Henderson Field. The grim mathematics of the ordnance reports are written in blood and exhaustion. When the bombers come, the Marines fire back with everything they have, creating a spectacular, useless shield of light. And the bombs always get through. They crater the precious runway, turning it into a sea of mud and water that grounds the Cactus Air Force. They destroy supply dumps, obliterating scarce food, medical supplies, and aviation fuel. But worst of all, they kill. The whistle of a falling bomb is a sound of pure democratic terror. It doesn't care about rank or courage. It just falls. The inability to fight back, to inflict any measurable damage, is a cancer on morale. The Marines are trapped between the enemy they can't hit and a jungle that is actively trying to kill them with malaria, dysentery, and fungal infections. A diary entry from a corporal in the 14th Defence Battalion reads, October 21st, rain again. Heard Charlie at 0200, fired 500 rounds, no hits. They bombed the aid station, dug graves for Smith and Miller. I don't think we can hit them. I don't think it's possible. The feeling of impotence is heavier than the humidity. The men are ghosts, hollowed out by lack of sleep, hunted by an enemy they can only hear. This is the human consequence of the M25 tracer. It is a tool that promises sight but delivers only blindness. The experts, in their starched uniforms thousands of miles away, are certain in their conclusions. They agree. Hitting a fast-moving nocturnal target without advanced radar direction is, for all practical purposes, impossible. Gunnery Sergeant Mike Sullivan is not an ordnance engineer. He is 34 years old, a career Marine who joined in 1928, long before the world caught fire. He grew up in the flat, dusty expanse of West Texas, where the horizon is a hard, straight line, and the only thing that moves is the wind or a jackrabbit. He learned to shoot from his father, not with complex sights, but by instinct. He learned to lead a running target by feeling its speed, by focusing on the empty patch of ground ahead of it, and waiting for the target to run into his shot. He trusts his eyes. He trusts what he sees, not what the manual tells him he should see. He is a pragmatist tempered by the Great Depression and the lean years of the pre-war Corps. He is not an intellectual, but he is a relentless observer. The problem of the missed bombers has become a personal obsession, a complex mechanical puzzle he turns over in his mind as he field strips his M2 for the 10th time. He watches his men. He sees the way they squint, the way their bodies tense before they fire, anticipating the blinding flash. He sees their frustration as they fire again and again at nothing. He feels the concussions from the bomb blasts as a personal failure. His men, young men barely out of high school, are doing exactly what they were trained to do. It is the training that is wrong. The tool is wrong. His background has given him no patience for theories that fail in practice. He's a man grounded in the physical, the weight of a full ammo can, the smell of gun oil, the resistance of a trigger. And it is this physical, sensory-based intelligence that will allow him to see the solution that has eluded the experts. The idea forms in the suffocating quiet of an ammunition bunker. Sullivan is running a belt of 50 caliber rounds through his gloves, feeling for burrs or bad links. Ball, 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 tracer. The red tip of the M25 seems to mock him. He is thinking about his hunt for the jackrabbit. You don't look at the bullet. You look at the rabbit. But his men are looking at the bullet because they can't see the rabbit. The problem is the light. How do you get rid of the light? You can't. You need it to aim. But what if the light wasn't a distraction? What if it wasn't at the start of the journey? He looks at the tracer round. He knows its construction. The tracer compound is packed into the base of the bullet, designed to be ignited by the propellant charge. But there's a delay element. It's not instantaneous. He pulls the round from the belt. He stares at it. What if? He walks out of the bunker and finds his lieutenant, a young, exhausted officer trying to make sense of supply manifests. "Sir," Sullivan says, his voice quiet, "I need permission to relink my gun belts." The lieutenant doesn't look up. "For what, Gunny? More tracers?" "No, sir. I want to load the tracers in backward." The lieutenant stops writing. He looks up at Sullivan as if he's lost his mind. "You want to load them backward? Primer end first? You'll detonate the round in the breech. You'll blow the gun and the gunner to hell. That's the stupidest, most suicidal thing I have ever heard." Sullivan holds up the round. "No, sir, not the cartridge, just the bullet. We delink the belt, pull the tracer rounds, and relink them with the bullet facing in toward the powder, backwards." The lieutenant is now even more confused. "So it shoots out the back, toward you?" "No, sir," Sullivan says, his patience holding. "The cartridge will chamber and fire, the bullet will fly, but the tracer element now at the front of the bullet won't ignite from the propellant. It will ignite from friction, from the air. It will ignite downrange. Well, after it leaves my barrel, I won't see the flash. I'll just see the light appear, 30, maybe 50 yards out, already on its way to the target. The lieutenant stares, the concept slowly forming. It's insane. It's tampering with ordnance. It's a court-martial. Get out of here, Gunny. Don't let me hear you talk about this again. We follow the book. Sullivan's jaw sets. He nods. Yes, sir. He walks away, knowing he will have to do it alone. He needs an ally. He finds him in Corporal Deacon Harris, a 19-year-old from Detroit who wiretapped his own family's radio to get distant stations. Deacon is a tinkerer. He understands mechanisms, and more importantly, he trusts Sullivan more than he fears the lieutenant. They meet in a captured Japanese tool shed, far from the main ammo dump. The air is thick with the smell of captured rice and machine oil. By the dim light of a hooded lantern, they get to work. Their tool is a hand-cranked M7 linking machine, a heavy cast-iron device. The work is painstaking and dangerous. First, they delink hundreds of rounds of M2 ammunition, the brass cartridges clinking softly as they fall into a crate. Then, the sacrilege. They take the red-tipped M25 rounds. Using a pair of pliers and a block of wood, they gently but firmly work the tracer bullet loose from its cartridge casing, careful not to spill the precious smokeless powder. Once the bullet is out, they reverse it, pushing the pointed tracer-filled tip down into the neck of the casing. They don't have a crimping tool, so Deacon uses the pliers to gently bite the brass casing, fixing the inverted bullet in place. It looks grotesque, a blunt, flat-nosed cartridge. Gunny, this is wrong, Deacon whispers, his hands slick with sweat. It'll fly like a brick. It just needs to fly far enough for the light to work, Sullivan says, his voice a low growl. Keep going. They work for hours. De-link, pull, reverse, crimp, relink, ball, reversed tracer. The new belt is ugly, a perversion of ordnance doctrine. By 0300, they have 300 rounds of Sullivan-Harris special. They clean the shed, burying the few spilled granules of powder. They load the first belt into the M2 in Sullivan's gun pit. The heavy clack of the charging handle echoes in the pre-dawn stillness. It feels final. Now they just have to wait for the night. And the enemy. The night is tense. The air raid siren is almost a relief. Condition red. Sullivan's crew dives into the pit. Deacon is on his left, feeding the belt. Sullivan settles behind the gun, his hands gripping the spade handles. He can hear the heavy thrum of Betty's approaching. Wait for it, he murmurs, tracking the lead plane's shadow. Wait. The target crosses the invisible line he's drawn in the sky. Fire! He squeezes the butterfly triggers. The M2 leaps to life, hammering his shoulders. Burp! A stream of darkness leaps from his gun. Nothing, no light. His heart sinks. Damn it, Deacon, they're duds. The air's not lighting 'em. The bomber drones on, arrogant and untouched. He squeezes the trigger again, a long, desperate 5-second burst, spraying the empty dark. Come on, you! And then it happens. About 60 yards out from the muzzle, a sudden swarm of red lights appears in mid-air, as if magicked into existence. They are not a blinding hose. They are discrete, sharp points of light, streaking away from him, perfectly illuminating the path to the target. His night vision is untouched. He isn't blinded. For the first time, he can see the dark silhouette of the Betty and the red line of his bullets at the same time. It's not a distraction. It's a pointer. He can see his rounds are flying low and behind. He adjusts his lead, lifting the M2's muzzle, walking this visible, unblinding stream of fire directly into the plane's flight path. The red dots converge with the shadow. There is no guesswork. He is connecting. He watches the tracers disappear into the fuselage. A pause, a flash. A tiny spark on the Betty's starboard wing root blossoms into a massive, bright orange flower of fire. The engine tears itself from the wing. The bomber lurches, its nose drops, and it begins its long, silent, spinning fall toward the iron-bottom sound. The gun pit is silent, the only sound the tink-tink-tink of hot casings falling. Deacon stares into the sky, his mouth open. Holy hell. Gunny, you did it. If stories of battlefield innovation fascinate you, stay with us. The next chapter of this desperate fight is just beginning. The kill is confirmed at dawn. A PBY Catalina spots the wreckage. The news travels fast. By Aero 900, Sullivan is not being congratulated. He is being escorted by 2 MPs to the division command tent. He is standing at rigid attention. In front of him is a colonel from G3 Operations, a man whose face looks carved from teak. The young lieutenant who told Sullivan no is in the corner, visibly sweating. On the colonel's desk is a mangled .50 caliber casing, the bullet inverted. Gunnery Sergeant Sullivan, the colonel's voice is dangerously quiet. Ordnance reports an unauthorized modification to M2 ammunition. This report is corroborated by your own lieutenant. This round is your work. Yes, sir, Sullivan says. His voice is flat. I'm aware of Article 94, sir, but standard issue M25s are compromising our night vision. The gunners are blinded by their own fire. We are not hitting the enemy, sir. The colonel leans forward. Doctrine is not a suggestion, Sergeant. It's based on hundreds of thousands of hours of research by men who are much smarter than you. You think you, a gunny in a foxhole, know better than the Bureau of Ordnance? Sullivan holds his gaze. Sir, I know what my eyes tell me, and last night, for the first time, my crew could see the target and the tracer simultaneously. The reverse-loaded round's delay allows the tracer to ignite after. It has cleared the gunner's field of vision. It becomes a true point of aim, not a point of distraction. We got a confirmed kill, sir. 1 gun, 1 pass. The colonel is silent for a long time. He picks up the deformed round. He looks at the fear in the lieutenant's eyes, then at the absolute, grounded certainty in Sullivan's. He drops the round. You will prepare 400 rounds of this modification by sundown. You will demonstrate it for my staff, personally. If it works, you're a hero. If it fails, Sergeant, I will have you court-martialed and buried so deep your family will never find the grave. Dismissed. That night, the Japanese return in force. They are expecting the same useless, blinding flak. They are not expecting Mike Sullivan. The colonel and his staff are in an observation bunker, their binoculars trained on the western perimeter. The alert comes. Condition red. Multiple groups. The drone of a dozen Betty bombers fills the sky. The 90mm guns open up, pounding the air. Then the colonel gives the order. Machine guns, engage at will. From Sullivan's pit, and then from 2 adjacent pits he has armed. The night is suddenly filled with something new, not a blinding wall of light, but dozens of outgoing streams of red stars, igniting in the dark and converging on the bombers. It looks like the island itself is shooting red lasers. The gunners are no longer hosing the sky. They are aiming. They are calling out corrections. Up 2! Left 1! They are walking their fire with precision. The effect on the Japanese pilots is catastrophic. They are being seen. A B-26 pilot from the Cactus Air Force, watching from the ground, would later write in his report, "It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The sky was full of red lines, and they were all connecting." They didn't stand a chance. One, Betty explodes in a fireball that lights up the entire island. A second, riddled from nose to tail, drops out of formation, trailing smoke. A third, seeing its wingmen obliterated, jettisons its bombs harmlessly in the jungle and turns to flee. The raid is broken. It's not a defense, it's a slaughter. In the observation bunker, the colonel lowers his binoculars. He turns to Sullivan in the darkness. He doesn't smile. He doesn't offer a word of praise. He simply nods once. It is the most profound congratulations of Sullivan's life. The Guadalcanal tactic spreads through the island's defenses like wildfire. Within a week, every 50 caliber, 20 mm and 40 mm anti-aircraft gun defending Henderson Field is firing reverse tracers. The official reports are staggering. After-action report, 1st Marine Division, November 1942. Nocturnal AA kill claims increased by 450% following implementation of modified M25 tracer loading doctrine. The tactical innovation, born of one man's observation, is immediately adopted by the U.S. Navy. Ships in the slot, New Georgia Sound, which had been helpless against night torpedo attacks, begin loading their 20 mm Oerlikon and 40 mm Bofors guns the same way. The hit ratios for night encounters skyrocket. The psychological advantage of the darkness, which the Japanese had owned, is now broken. The Bureau of Ordnance, faced with indisputable combat-proven data, is forced to act. While they never officially endorse the improper field modification, a new type of tracer round is quietly fast-tracked for development, the M21 and later the M48. These rounds are designed with a much longer 5-second delay fuse, specifically for night gunnery, perfectly replicating Sullivan's impossible idea in a factory-safe round. This simple, elegant solution saves countless lives, ships, and strategic positions across the Pacific. And Gunnery Sergeant Mike Sullivan, he is not decorated for it. His name is not mentioned in the official histories. He serves out his tour, fights at Tarawa and Saipan, and after the war returns to Texas to a life of quiet anonymity. He is one of the thousands of faceless innovators, the mud-level geniuses who actually won the war, not with grand strategy, but with desperate, brilliant, and defiant acts of common sense. The principle that Mike Sullivan discovered in the mud of Guadalcanal is a timeless lesson in human-centric design. The problem was never the gun, nor the bullet. The problem was the fragile biological interface between the machine and the man. The solution was not more technology, but smarter technology, one that understood the operator's limitations and turned a weakness into a strength. This same principle echoes today. It is alive in the design of a modern fighter pilot's heads-up display, HUD, which superimposes critical data directly onto the pilot's view of the world, ensuring they never have to look down at a critical moment. It is in the ergonomic design of a surgeon's tools and the auditory-based warning systems used by emergency responders in low-light conditions. True innovation, time and again, is not about adding complexity. It is about empathy. It is about understanding the human being at the center of the system. The gun pits on Henderson Field have long since been reclaimed by the jungle, silent witnesses to the violence and ingenuity of the men who fought there. But the lesson remains. The darkness is always a challenge, whether it is the literal black of a Pacific night, the vast emptiness of space, or the cognitive fog of an unsolved problem. The most powerful solutions are often counterintuitive, simple, and born from a single defiant observation. Every great idea begins as an act of defiance against impossibility. What impossible ideas do you think could change the world?